The universe, in its infinite expanse, holds many secrets, some whispered in the light of dying stars, others buried in the silence of voids so vast that light itself dares not traverse. It was against this backdrop of cosmic mystery that the eclipse set its course. A sleek vessel cutting through the darkness, its destination, Mars. A silence had descended upon Earth. All communications equipment had become silent, and so it had prompted the assembly of a crew, each member chosen for their expertise, their ability to confront the unknown. Captain Nova Sterling stood at the helm, her gaze fixed on the red planet growing larger in the viewport. Beside her, First Officer Jace Meyer monitored the ship's systems, a calm presence in the face of uncertainty. Chief Engineer Leora Keene was deep in the bowels of the ship, ensuring their vessel remained a beacon of light and science in the oppressive darkness. Science Officer Felix Dawn peered through his instruments, eager for a glimpse of the artifact that had preceded Earth's silence. Navigator Orion Pax charted their course with precision, while Communications Officer Kaylee Vex scanned the frequencies for a sign, any sign. Tactical Officer Ronan Slate stood ready, his mind always on the safety of the ship and its crew. The eclipse was not merely a ship. It was a testament to humanity's indomitable will, a will to seek answers, to reach out across the void and touch the face of the cosmos. Yet, as Mars loomed closer, a sense of foreboding settled over the crew. The communications blackout from Earth was unprecedented, an enigma that defied all logic and experience. The silence was a void, and into this void, the eclipse sailed, a lone vessel against the backdrop of an indifferent universe. Sterling broke the silence, her voice a steady beacon. All hands prepare for landing. Meyer, status report. Meyer responded with practiced calm. All systems green, Captain. We're ready. As the ship descended toward the Martian surface, the red dust swirling in alien winds, the crew felt the weight of isolation. Mars, with its desolate beauty, was a world of secrets, and it was here that Earth's silence had begun, with the discovery of an artifact. Dawn, ever the scientist, was the first to voice the question on everyone's mind. What do you think it is, this artifact that silenced Earth? Vex, her hands hovering over her console, searching in vain for Earth's voice, replied, "Whatever it is, it's changed everything. We have to be prepared for what we'll find." Slate, ever vigilant, added, "Prepared or not, we're here to do a job. Let's make sure we all come back." The eclipse touched down on Mars with a grace that belied the tension aboard. The crew donned their suits, stepping out onto the Martian soil, the red dust kicking up beneath their boots. They stood together, a circle of humanity on an alien world, their eyes fixed on the horizon where the artifact lay hidden, its secrets veiled by distance and silence. The journey to the artifact was a silent march, each member of the crew lost in their thoughts, their fears, their hopes. The Martian landscape was a tapestry of desolation, its beauty stark and unyielding. And there, on the horizon, the artifact awaited, a dark silhouette against the crimson sky. As they approached, the artifact came into view, a monolith, its surface shifting, patterns moving in a dance of light and shadow. It was unlike anything they had seen, a relic of a bygone era or a harbinger of the future, its purpose as enigmatic as the silence it had wrought. Dawn approached, his instruments trained on the monolith. It's emitting something, not just light, but a signal perhaps. It's unlike any technology we know. The shadow of the monolith stretched long and twisted over the Martian landscape as the crew of the eclipse approached, their suits casting bulbous, otherworldly shadows beside it. The artifact, a towering spire of unknown material, seemed to drink in the light of the sun, its surface a canvas of shifting patterns that mesmerized and unnerved in equal measure. Dawn's fascination was palpable, his instruments scanning the monolith with a fervor that bordered on obsession. "It's not just the patterns," he murmured, almost to himself. "There's something about the way it resonates. It's like it's speaking directly to the fabric of reality itself." Sterling watched him, her concern masked by the reflective visor of her helmet. Dawn, keep your focus. We need to understand its purpose, not get lost in it. Meyer, standing a respectful distance from the artifact, kept his gaze fixed on their surroundings. There's no sign of any other technology or structures. It's as if the artifact just appeared here. The silence of the planet seemed to press in on them, a stark reminder of their isolation. Keen, her tools at the ready, approached the base of the monolith. There's no discernible power source, no emissions. It's as if it's dormant. Yet there's a vibration. It's almost imperceptible, but it's there. As the crew gathered their data, Pax and Vex set up a perimeter, their eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of danger. Slate, ever the protector, stood closest to the artifact, his hand never straying far from his weapon. The banter that had characterized their journey to Mars was absent now, replaced by a professional focus. Yet beneath their calm exteriors, a current of unease ran deep. They were explorers, scientists, soldiers. Not one among them had faced a mystery like this before. Vex broke the silence, her voice crackling over the comm. There's something about this place. It feels like we're being watched. Pax chuckled, a sound that seemed out of place in the oppressive atmosphere. Mars has eyes now, does it? Vex shot him a look that was lost in the reflection of her visor. I'm serious, Pax. There's a feeling here. It's unsettling. The crew's attention was drawn back to the artifact as Keen announced, "There's a pattern here. It's not random, it's repeating, but not in a way that makes any sense to our systems." Don leaned in closer, his instruments whirring and beeping softly. "It's like a puzzle, begging to be solved. But every time I think I'm close to understanding, it shifts, changes. It's alive, in a way." Sterling stepped forward, her voice firm. "We're not here to solve puzzles. We're here to find out why Earth has gone silent. Dawn, Keen, I want samples. Anything you can gather without compromising safety. Meyer, Pax, keep an eye on our perimeter. Slate, Vex, stay with the artifact. We don't know what it's capable of." As the crew set about their tasks, the artifact stood silent, a sentinel on the Martian surface. Its secrets were locked within, a puzzle that defied understanding. The crew of the Eclipse, each member lost in their thoughts and fears, worked with a single-minded purpose, unaware that the true test of their resolve was yet to come. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the landscape into shadow. The artifact, however, seemed to glow faintly in the twilight, its patterns more pronounced, more insistent. It was then that Dawn, his hands carefully collecting samples from the base of the monolith, paused. His body stiffened, his voice barely a whisper over the comm. "Do you hear that?" The others stopped, straining to listen. The silence of Mars was complete, unbroken even by the sound of their own breathing. Dawn turned, his face pale within the confines of his helmet. "It's speaking, the artifact. It's speaking to me." And in that moment, as the crew of the Eclipse stood on the brink of an unknown abyss, the silent planet seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what was to come. Under the cold, indifferent gaze of Martian stars, a palpable shift permeated the air around the Eclipse crew. Dawn's assertion that the artifact spoke to him sent ripples of unease through the team, an invisible force that seemed to tighten around their throats. The silence that followed was heavy, loaded with questions no one dared to voice. It was a moment suspended in time, a prelude to the chaos that would soon engulf them. Meyer, ever the voice of reason, broke the silence, his tone a mixture of skepticism and concern. "Dawn, artifacts don't speak. Maybe it's time to head back to the ship. We're all exhausted, and the stress is—" He was cut off, not by a rebuttal, but by a sudden, sharp gasp from Keen. All heads turned, eyes wide behind visor glass, as they witnessed a scene that would forever haunt the corridors of their minds. Meyer's body convulsed, not with the spasms of natural human affliction, but in a grotesque symphony of transformation. His skin, once a familiar human sheath, began to stretch and warp, as if invisible hands molded him from the inside, reshaping the very essence of his being. The crew stood frozen, horror etched into their faces, as Myers' screams pierced the Martian night, a sound so raw and terrifying it seemed to belong to another world. Vex, her hands clutched to her mouth in a vain attempt to stifle her cries, stumbled backward, her eyes never leaving the horrific spectacle before her. "Help him!" Sterling's command cut through the thick air of shock, propelling Slate into action. But what could they do? The transformation defied logic, defied science. Myers' body continued its grotesque dance, limbs elongating, skin splitting and resealing into something other, something not human. Dawn, his earlier fascination with the artifact now a distant memory, fell to his knees, his instruments forgotten. "What have we done?" he whispered, a question not meant to be answered. Pax, the ever-steady navigator, took a step forward, his hand reaching out, then retracting as if burned. "We need to get him back to the ship. Medical bay. Now." His voice, usually calm and measured, cracked under the strain of the moment. But it was too late. The transformation completed its course with a sickening finality, leaving Meyer a twisted parody of his former self. His screams had ceased, replaced by a deep, unsettling silence. The crew, a tight-knit family forged in the depths of space, looked on in despair, their mission, their purpose, forgotten in the face of such inexplicable horror. Sterling, her leadership never more tested, gathered her composure. "We carry him back. We need to understand what happened." Her voice was a lifeline in the darkness, pulling the crew back from the brink of panic. As they prepared to transport Myers' altered form back to the Eclipse, a sense of dread settled over them, a foreboding realization that their journey had crossed into uncharted territory. The artifact, silent now, stood as a monolith of terror, a harbinger of the horrors that lay ahead. The return to the ship was a procession of solemnity, a march of the damned under the uncaring stars. Each step was a testament to the fragility of their sanity, a sanity frayed by the sight of Myers' transformation. Inside the medical bay, Keen and Sterling worked tirelessly, scanning, probing, searching for answers, where none seemed to exist. Meyer, now transformed into a tangled heap of flesh, did not survive this horrific transformation, but the crew needed some very serious questions answered. Outside, however, the crew huddled together, a collective mass of grief and fear. Vex, her voice barely a whisper, summed up the thoughts of all. "What's happening to us?" The corridors of the Eclipse echoed with a silence that was almost palpable, a stark contrast to the chaos that had unfolded on the Martian surface. The crew, once united in their mission, now found themselves grappling with a reality that threatened to tear them apart. The transformation of Meyer into something beyond human understanding had sown seeds of fear and doubt, leaving each member to wrestle with their own demons in the darkness. In the wake of the horror, factions began to emerge. Sterling, steadfast in her duty as captain, sought to maintain order and focus on the mission, despite the growing unease among her crew. Her leadership, once unchallenged, now faced the scrutiny of those who questioned the path forward. Slate, whose role as the protector of the crew had always been clear, found himself at the forefront of a burgeoning rebellion. The artifact, he argued, was a threat not just to their physical bodies but to their very sanity. "We need to destroy it," he insisted, his voice a low rumble in the dimly lit mess hall where a small group had gathered. "Before it destroys us." Keen, her mind a whirlwind of scientific curiosity and fear, was torn. The engineer in her wanted to understand the artifact, to unlock its secrets. Yet the sight of Myers' transformation haunted her, a ghostly reminder of the dangers they faced. Pax and Vex, both vital to the crew's operations, found themselves caught in the middle. Pax's loyalty to Sterling was unwavering, but Vex, whose communications expertise had become moot in the silence from Earth, felt the pull of Slate's arguments. "What if he's right?" she pondered aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. What if the only way to save ourselves is to get rid of the artifact? The debate raged, voices rising in passion and fear, until Sterling called for silence. "We are not executioners," she declared, her gaze sweeping over the crew. "Our mission is to understand, to explore. The moment we destroy something we don't understand is the moment we betray everything we stand for." But Slate was unmoved. And what about Meyer? Did he not stand for the same principles? Look where that got him. The tension was palpable, a thick fog that seemed to seep into every corner of the ship. Conversations became whispers, whispers became glances, and glances became divisions that ran deep and silent. In the days that followed, the eclipse became a ship divided. Sterling and her loyalists continued their research, attempting to piece together the puzzle of the artifact and its effects on Meyer. Slate and his followers, meanwhile, began to prepare for the possibility of taking matters into their own hands. Don, once consumed by the artifact's mysteries, now found himself isolated, his earlier enthusiasm replaced by a deep, gnawing guilt. He wandered the ship, a ghost among the living, his eyes haunted by the memory of Meyer's transformation. The crew's daily routines became a dance of avoidance, each member lost in their thoughts, their fears, their plans. The unity that had once defined them was shattered, replaced by a fragile truce that held only by the thinnest of threads. As the eclipse hurtled through the void, its crew teetered on the brink of an abyss not just of space, but of the soul. The journey ahead was uncertain, the path uncharted, and the only certainty was that nothing would ever be the same again. The eclipse, once a vessel of exploration and discovery, now drifted in the shadow of Mars, a silent sentinel to the unraveling of its crew. Within its metal confines, the artifact's influence spread like a virus, insidious and unseen, touching each crew member in ways both profound and terrifying. Vex, whose role as communications officer had become increasingly redundant in the silence that engulfed them, found herself drawn to the artifact in a way she couldn't explain. It whispered to her, a siren's call that filled the void left by Earth's silence. The others noticed her growing obsession, watched as she spent hours in the cargo hold where the artifact was stored, her eyes fixed on its ever-shifting surface. One evening, as the crew gathered in the common area for a meal marked more by silence than conversation, Vex stood, her movements abrupt, almost convulsive. Her eyes, when she lifted her gaze to them, were not her own. They were pools of darkness that seemed to drink in the light. "It speaks," she said, her voice not her own, a chorus of whispers that filled the room. "It has shown me the way." Pax, who had always found solace in the routines of navigation, felt a chill run down his spine. "Vex, what are you talking about? What has it shown you?" But she didn't answer, turning instead to leave the room, her steps guided by an unseen force. Slate, ever the protector, made to follow her, but Sterling's hand on his arm stopped him. "Let her go," she said, her voice tinged with a fear she could not hide. "We can't help her if she doesn't want to be helped." As the days passed, Vex's transformation became more pronounced. Her body began to warp, her limbs elongating, her skin taking on a luminescence that was unnatural, unsettling. She became a conduit for the artifact, her voice broadcasting its alien messages throughout the ship, a cacophony of sounds that were not meant for human ears. The crew, already fracturing under the weight of fear and mistrust, found themselves further divided. Some saw Vex's transformation as a sign, a beacon that might lead them to understanding, perhaps even to salvation. Others viewed it with horror, a grim reminder of their vulnerability, of the power the artifact wielded over them. Keen, caught between her loyalty to Sterling and her fascination with the artifact, struggled to maintain her composure. "We need to study her," she argued, her voice betraying her inner turmoil. "If we can understand how the artifact is doing this, maybe we can find a way to stop it." But Dawn, once the artifact's greatest advocate, now viewed it with a dread that bordered on revulsion. "Stop it? We should be trying to destroy it." It's manipulating us, using us for its own ends. The crew's attempts to communicate with Vex, to reach the woman she once was, proved futile. She was lost to them, a vessel for the artifact's will. And as they watched her body contort into ever more grotesque shapes, they could not help but wonder who would be next. As Vex's broadcasts filled the ship, a babel of alien voices that eroded their sanity, the crew clung to what little hope remained. But in the depths of space, far from the light of any star, hope was a fragile thing easily shattered. The divide between them grew deeper, a chasm that no words could bridge. And as they drifted further into the darkness, both literal and metaphorical, the eclipse became a symbol not of human achievement, but of human folly. A ship adrift in a sea of stars, its crew a reflection of the broken, twisted forms that now inhabited it. In the suffocating silence that now cloaked the eclipse, a decision born of desperation and darkness was made. Pax, whose hands had once steered their course through the void with unerring precision, now guided the ship towards a new, ominous destination. The alien artifact, its influence insidious and unyielding, had whispered of a place beneath the Martian surface, a chasm so deep and dark it seemed to swallow the very light. The crew, divided and driven by a maelstrom of fear, watched as the Martian landscape changed before their eyes, the red sands giving way to jagged cliffs and gaping maws that promised oblivion. The descent into the chasm was a journey into the heart of their nightmares, a physical manifestation of the void that had opened between them. Sterling, her authority eroded by the artifact's relentless assault on their sanity, stood by Pax's side, her gaze fixed on the forward screens. The chasm loomed large, its edges sharp and unforgiving, a scar upon the face of Mars that seemed to beckon them closer. "Pax, are you sure this is the way?" Sterling's voice was a whisper, almost lost in the hum of the engines. Pax nodded, his focus unwavering. "It's what the artifact wants. Maybe it's where we'll find our answers." But Keen, her scientific curiosity battling with a primal fear, was not convinced. Or maybe it's where it wants us to be, trapped, unable to escape. The descent was a slow spiral into darkness, the ship's lights piercing the gloom with beams that seemed too feeble to fight back the shadows. As they descended further, the walls of the chasm closed in, a claustrophobic embrace that threatened to crush them. It was then that they saw it. A structure, alien and ancient, its architecture a dizzying array of angles and surfaces that defied understanding. It pulsed with a light that was neither welcoming nor warm, but it promised answers, or at least an end to their quest. Slate, his resolve hardened by the sight of the alien edifice, turned to Sterling. "Captain, we can't let this thing control us. We have to fight back." Sterling, her eyes reflecting the alien light, nodded slowly. "I know, but first, we need to understand. We go in, but we stay together. No one goes off alone." The eclipse settled on a flat expanse near the structure, the engines falling silent as if in relief. The crew, encased in their suits, stepped onto the alien ground, the gravity of Mars a constant reminder of their fragility in this vast, uncaring universe. The structure's entrance loomed before them, an archway of impossible geometry that seemed to shift and change the longer they looked at it. Vex, now more alien than human, led the way, her form a beacon of otherworldly light. Inside the structure was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, each more alien than the last. The air was thick with a sense of age and secrets long buried. The walls hummed with a power that was palpable, a song of stars and darkness woven into the very fabric of the building. Dawn, drawn to the alien script that adorned the walls, reached out to touch the symbols, only to pull back as if burned. "It's alive," he whispered, his voice a mix of awe and horror. "The whole structure. It's breathing." The deeper they ventured, the more the structure seemed to respond to their presence. Lights flickered to life as they passed, revealing glimpses of a civilization that had reached for the stars and fallen into oblivion, And then they found it, the heart of the structure, a chamber so vast it seemed to contain a universe of its own. At its center, a device, or perhaps a portal, pulsed with a light that spoke of other times, other worlds. Sterling stepped forward, her crew behind her, their differences forgotten in the face of the unknown. "This is it," she said, her voice steady. "Whatever happens, we face it together." As they approached the device, the air shimmered with energy, a bridge forming between them and the heart of the alien mystery. They stood on the threshold, a crew united by circumstance and by the shared knowledge that whatever lay beyond, their lives would never be the same. The eclipse, silent above them, was a distant memory, a reminder of a mission that had started with hope and ended in the depths of an alien darkness. But as they took that final step, they knew that the true journey was just beginning. The air vibrated with unseen energies, and the light from the central device bathed everything in a surreal glow. This was a place of power, a nexus of cosmic forces that the ancient architects of this edifice had somehow harnessed. Keen, her engineer's curiosity battling with the primal fear that this place evoked, moved closer to the device. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, a complex amalgamation of technology and organic matter that seemed to pulse with life. "It's like the structure itself is part of a larger mechanism," she mused, her voice filled with wonder and trepidation. As they explored the chamber, it became evident that the device was not merely architectural, it was functional, its purpose intertwined with the very fabric of the universe. The walls, covered in the same alien script that Dawn had recoiled from earlier, seemed to tell a story of civilizations long gone, of cosmic journeys, and the quest for knowledge that had led them to the edge of oblivion. Sterling, drawn to the narrative woven into the walls, felt a profound sense of connection to these ancient travelers. "They were explorers like us," she said, her voice echoing in the vast chamber. "Seeking answers in the dark, we're not so different." The unity that the crew had rediscovered in facing the unknown together was short-lived, however. As they delved deeper into the mysteries of the chamber, the device at its center began to react to their presence. A low hum filled the air, growing in intensity until it was all they could hear, a sound that seemed to resonate with their very bones. It was then that Keen made a startling discovery. The ship's systems, which had been dormant since they entered the structure, flickered to life, displaying readings that made no sense. "The ship, it's changing," she said, her voice barely audible over the hum. "It's like the structure is rewriting it, integrating it into something else." The realization that the eclipse was becoming part of the alien mechanism, that they were inside a living entity of unimaginable complexity, sent a wave of panic through the crew. Their sanctuary, their link to the world they knew, was being transformed into something alien, something other. Dawn, his fear of the artifact now dwarfed by the awe this new discovery inspired, stepped forward. "This is it," he said, a sense of clarity in his eyes. "This is why the artifact brought us here. We're part of something larger, something cosmic." But Slate, his instinct to protect the crew from harm more acute than ever, saw only danger. "We need to get out of here," he insisted, his gaze darting around the chamber, searching for an escape, "before we're too integrated to leave." The crew's attempt to retreat, to pull back from the brink of this cosmic integration, was thwarted by the structure itself. The chamber seemed to react to their panic, the device at its center pulsing with a light that grew brighter, more insistent. Keen, her engineer's mind racing to understand the incomprehensible, realized the truth too late. "We can't leave," she said, her voice a mix of resignation and wonder. "We're part of it now, part of a network that spans the stars. This is how they traveled, how they explored." The crew stood, transfixed by the revelation, their individual fears and aspirations swallowed by the enormity of what they had become part of. The eclipse, their home and vessel, was no longer just a ship. It was a node in a cosmic web, a bridge between worlds. As they faced this new reality, the distinctions between them, between human and alien, between explorer and discovered, began to blur. They were no longer just a crew. They were part of a continuum that stretched across the universe, a testament to the unquenchable thirst for knowledge that defined all sentient beings. The chamber, with its pulsing device and ancient scripts, was no longer just a room within an alien structure. It was a gateway, a point of connection between all who had come before and all who would come after, a heart of darkness that beat with the light of a million stars. The revelation of their integration into an ancient cosmic network was a turning point for the crew of the Eclipse. The realization that they had become part of something far beyond their understanding or control ignited a frenzy of emotions. Fear, awe, and a sense of inevitability clashed within the confines of the alien structure and the transformed corridors of their ship. Slate, whose instincts had always been to protect and defend, found himself grappling with a reality where those concepts no longer held the same meaning. The protective barriers he had built around himself and his crew seemed insignificant in the face of this vast, cosmic integration. Yet the spark of rebellion, of defiance against the unknown, still burned within him. "We can't just accept this," Slate declared, his voice echoing through the chamber, a challenge to the silence. "There has to be a way to fight, to reclaim what we've lost." Sterling, who had always led with a combination of intuition and logic, felt the weight of her command more heavily than ever. The cohesion of her crew, once unbreakable, now frayed under the strain of their transformation. "What do you suggest, Slate? We're beyond the reach of any rebellion now. Our best chance is to understand, to adapt." But adaptation was a concept too vast, too abstract for the immediacy of their situation. The crew, once human, now found themselves on the precipice of something else, their very identities being rewritten by the alien network they had unwittingly joined. It was Keen, the engineer who had always found solace in the tangible, the understandable, who made the first move towards rebellion. If we're part of this network, then there's got to be a way to disrupt it, to sever our connection. I say we try. Her words, a spark in the darkness, ignited a plan. With Slate and a few others, they began to devise a way to disconnect the Eclipse from the cosmic web, a dangerous gambit that risked not only their lives but their very essence. The rest of the crew, caught between loyalty to Sterling and the growing momentum of the rebellion, found themselves at a crossroads. Pax, once the steady hand at the helm, now navigated a sea of uncertainty within himself. Vex, transformed beyond recognition by the artifact's influence, served as a living reminder of the potential cost of their rebellion. Dawn, whose fascination with the artifact had led them to this juncture, was now the most conflicted. We sought knowledge, and we found it. But at what cost? Are we willing to sacrifice what we've become for a chance to return to what we were? The question hung in the air, unanswered as the crew prepared for their last stand. The plan was desperate, a technical gambit that involved rerouting power, disrupting the alien structure's influence over the ship and, if they were lucky, severing their connection to the cosmic network. As they set their plan in motion, the structure seemed to sense their intent. The hum that had pervaded the air intensified, a palpable force that sought to thwart their efforts. The ship, now an extension of the alien mechanism, resisted their attempts to reclaim it. In the heart of the structure, the device that had seemed a beacon of understanding now appeared as a sentinel, guarding the secrets of the cosmos from those who dared to defy it. The crew's actions, a blend of science and desperation, pushed them to the limits of their endurance and beyond. Systems that had been silent flared to life, only to falter under the overwhelming force of the network. And then, in a moment of unity that harkened back to the days before the artifact, before the transformation, they succeeded. The connection was severed, the hum ceased, and the Eclipse, for a brief shining moment, was theirs again. But victory, if it could be called that, was fleeting. The rebellion, their last stand against the cosmic forces that had claimed them, had consequences. The structure, its purpose thwarted, reacted with a force that was both violent and final. The crew, caught in the backlash, found themselves not liberated, but further entwined in the cosmic web. Their identities, their very realities, were fractured, scattered across the network like stars in the night sky. In the aftermath, the eclipse lay silent, a shell of its former self. The crew, those who remained, were changed in ways that defied understanding. They had sought to reclaim their humanity, only to find themselves further from it than ever before. Their last stand, a testament to their courage and their folly, left them adrift in a universe that was both familiar and utterly alien. The journey they had embarked upon, driven by a quest for knowledge and understanding, had led them to a destination beyond the reach of their wildest dreams or darkest nightmares. And as they faced the dawn of this new reality, they realized that the journey was far from over. The cosmos, vast and mysterious, still held secrets to be discovered, paths to be explored. But for the crew of the Eclipse, the path forward was no longer clear, their future a tapestry woven from the threads of what they had been and what they had become. In the aftermath of their last stand, the crew of the Eclipse found themselves in a reality altered beyond recognition. The ship, once a beacon of human ingenuity and a home away from home, was now an alien entity, its corridors and chambers reshaped by the cosmic web they had so desperately sought to escape. The backlash from their rebellion had not only failed to sever their connection to the cosmic network, but had instead drawn them deeper into its embrace. The Eclipse, integrated fully into the alien mechanism, became a conduit for energies and knowledge that spanned the universe, a hub in the vast interconnected cosmos. Sterling, Keen, Slate, and the others were transformed, their bodies and minds altered by their integration into the network. They were no longer merely human, but part of a larger cosmic consciousness that defied their understanding. As they navigated the ship, now a living entity pulsating with alien life, they encountered remnants of their past selves, echoes of their humanity that flickered in and out of existence. These remnants served as haunting reminders of what they had lost, and yet they also provided a glimpse into the profound connection they now shared with the universe. Dawn, once consumed by his desire to understand the artifact, found a new purpose in their altered state. He became a herald of the new dawn, a mediator between the human remnants of the crew and the cosmic consciousness they had become part of. "We are more than we were," he proclaimed, his voice resonating with the multifaceted harmonies of the network. "We are part of a symphony that spans the stars." The crew, or what remained of them, set course for Earth, as they had a new mission, to free Earth from its silence, to show them the interconnected cosmic network. They became the harbingers who would deliver humanity into a new era of knowledge.